Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Kaladesh. Marshall Sutcliffe with Ian Duke, freshly back in the booth. Welcome back, Ian.
Thank you.
We're ready for round number 10. You and I were just taking a look at the deck list from our two competitors here. It's Reid Duke versus Shota Yasooka. They've got a lot going on these deck lists. These are anything but straightforward decks. We'll explain that and more as we head down to the feature match area for round number 10. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Kaladesh. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke. And Ian, we've got a real nice one down in the feature match area here for round number 10. This is the second round of booster draft here on day 2. We've got Shota Yasooka. Shota, right now, the lone undefeated player in our field. And it's a rather large field for a Pro Tour as well. You know, we're well over 400 players here pushing up against 500. Shota's from Japan. He's 9-0. Right now with a crazy deck in this format, and we'll get a chance to talk about that in a minute. Let's take a look at his opponent, though. Reid Duke, somebody that you know quite well, Ian. He's your brother, as it turns out. He's sitting at 8-1, so an absolutely great start from Reid. And his deck is also kind of crazy, though, in a bit of a different way. He's running a lot of artifacts and some build-arounds as well. So Shota Yasooka, I would say the two cards that really jump out to me is that he's got 2 copies of Aetherworks Marvel in his deck, and then he also has a lot of bombs, including Saheeli's Artistry, a Noxious Gearhulk, and a Confiscation Coup.
That's right.
He's not fooling around.
We saw that Noxious Gearhulk get double copied by Saheeli's Artistry, I believe, twice last round.
2 for 2. He played 2 games, 3 Gearhulks each game.
As far as blowouts go, that's pretty wild.
It is. Now, on Reid's side, though, you know, his deck plays out much differently. And one of the cool cards he has is he has 2 copies of Underhanded Designs in his deck here, which he's going to try to really maximize by playing as many artifacts as he could really fit into this deck, to be honest with you. I mean, he's even playing some relatively off-color artifacts like Weldfast Monitors and an Arnhem Cobra that he can activate technically, but he's not going to be doing repeatedly in most games. And here's one of those Weldfast Monitors now as he attacks in with the Foundry Screecher. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting one because we've got kind of 2 decks that would actually prefer to go into the late game here. And it's going to be kind of fireworks as we hit either the grindy stuff for Reid or the more explosive stuff for Shota.
That's right, Marshall. I mean, both of these decks fundamentally are blue-black control decks, each splashing in different ways. Reid has white for Dovin Shota red for Unlicensed Disintegration, which we can see in his hand here. And totally agree. They're both controlling decks. They both want to go to the late game. Unclear to me which one has a more powerful late game, both with a number of strong rares in their decks. So this could absolutely go either direction, but it's sure to be a drawn-out match.
Interesting there. Thriving Turtle got into the red zone, ate up a couple of energy to get a +1/+1 counter. Just 1, though, and Reid could have blocked with his 3/2 Weldfast Monitor, decided against it. Dai Young took down the Foundry Screecher there post-combat, and Reid is going to start to enter this middle part of the game with the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot. He thinks he's going to attack for 3 damage with his Weldfast Monitor.
Now, I believe we may have seen Shota actually miss his land drop on the previous turn. If not that, at the very least, he doesn't have any lands following up in his hand. So that could prove to be a big problem here. Both of these decks pretty mana hungry, wanting to get up to 5 or 6 mana to play big bombs. And Shota stumbling a little bit here could open the door for Reid to get a little bit aggressive.
Ooh, right when you say that, though, he peels a land off the top, immediately plays it. And he's going to play a Maulfist squad here, and he's going to fabricate by making a servo. Interesting to see these fabricate decisions as we saw Reid play a Weaponcraft Enthusiast on his turn, which is a really powerful fabricate card because it has fabricate 2 and can make 3 creatures, including 2 of them being artifacts, but he decided not to. He took the much often less used mode for the Enthusiast there and just made it into a 2/3.
Yeah, he may have smelled blood a little bit in the sense that, you know, Shota stumbling a little bit on land and Reid getting ahead on board. You know, he might have just wanted a little bit more powerful creature to kind of attack with.
Yeah, that's right. Also, you know, making a bunch of servos against the Thriving Turtle that already has a counter on it is less appealing.
That's right.
16.
And you heard a little chuckle there from Shota because Reid is just chaining Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knots together, and a little smile from Reid too there. He says, "Yeah, I can do this too." Can draw some cards. But Reid's not going to be smiling if Shota gets to that powerful late game. I went through those rares that he has. It's absurd. I mean, the high end on his deck is absolutely off the charts. And yeah, we do have a real metal spinners puzzle knot fight happening here between these two players. Is Shota going to miss another land drop here? Yeah.
How many cards?
And that's a huge step. If we actually take a look at Shota's hand, some very powerful cards in there.
Holy
The one
smoke.
that stands out to me is Confiscation Coup. This is a control magic variant, allows you to steal an opponent's creature or artifact. And as soon as Shota hits his 5th land, he'll have that as an option here.
Speaking of drawing cards, it's all Puzzle Knots and Tezzeret's Ambitions here for Reid Duke, who is really dominating as far as land drops, and he's got plenty of cards in hand as well. But his deck doesn't have the ability, at least most of the time, to kind of drop the hammer on his opponent and really just play one huge board-affecting spell. It's more like this. Now he plays an underhanded designs that he's going to be able to use to kind of grind and chip away at Shota's either creatures, you know, if he wants to sacrifice the underhanded designs, or his life total if he just wants to keep it around. But Shota's deck is quite the opposite. It is explosive when it gets to the top of its curve here.
And wow, this
Wow,
is
he just
enormous.
missed another land
He
drop?
actually missed twice that turn. Missed his draw step and paid 3 mana to sacrifice the puzzle knot. Missed again. So no 5th land here for Shota. And I'm noticing what could potentially be an interesting development for this game here. In Reid's hand, we have Ether Squall Ancient.
Yes.
Really powerful card. Something he could definitely use to win the game. Here
Okay.
it comes down. But, you know, Shota does have that Confiscation Coup and hits his 5th land here. Does he have enough energy to
Yes.
take the Ancient? I believe he does.
Plenty. He'll have 10. He can just steal it right away. And somehow, Shota, even though he has his own bombs, may just end up taking away Reid's.
Yeah, this is a crazy turn of events here.
God. See if he goes for it here. It will leave him relatively depleted on energy. He'll go up to 10, then fall back down to 3, but it has to be worth it. Also, the Ancient gives you 3 energy on your upkeep no matter what, and Shota is absolutely an energy deck.
I can't imagine not going for it here.
I can't either. And Shota can't either, so he is just going to steal the Ether Squall Ancient from Reid Duke. So brutal. You know, we are doing a new thing here, by the way, Ian, with the, you can take clips. If you're watching on twitch.tv, you can use the hashtag PTTopPlays, and you can take a 30-second clip. And if you see something crazy, like that was a pretty nice play, and Shota and Reid both have capable decks of making some pretty nice little highlight clip type things. And if you want to do those, you can tweet it at us or just hashtag them with PT Top Plays and do that on Twitch.
And speaking of clip-worthy things that could happen here, we see in Reid's hand a Marionette Master as well as a Saheeli's Artistry. And I also saw earlier that Shota has his own Saheeli's Artistry. So we may see some copying back and forth going on. Maybe further complicated by, you know, Marionette Master getting copied can be very powerful there because you can get both the modes of Fabricate there synergizing with each other, but also Ether Squall Ancient with its ability to return each other creature to their owner's hands could get really complicated with tokens on the battlefield and the fact that Shota controls Reid's Ether Squall Ancient. So we'll hold our breath here for a moment, but there could be some exciting things happening.
Oh, man. This could get completely out of hand. I am definitely putting on the seatbelt here, kiddos. This one could get bumpy. Okay, so first thing Reid's going to do is play Marionette Master. And he is going to use the Fabricate 3 to make 3 servos rather than put the counters on the Master herself. And he's just going to pass the turn. Now, on Shota's upkeep, he's going to get 3 energy from the Ether Squall Ancient, and this is where the fireworks start. He just drew another land off the top, Ian, and that means that his Saheeli's Artistry is now online. If he can find a way to maximize that, he may just fire it off here.
So as Shota thinks through his turn here, looking at Reid's handed board state, one of the options open to Reid next turn is to cast Saheeli's Artistry on his own Marionette Master, get a copy of it, and then actually put the counters on the copy. That'll give him 2 Marionette Masters, so each artifact that dies will cause Shota to lose 4 life.
Okay, well, the Ether Squall Ancient, by the way, is also a 6/6 flyer in addition to all the other powerful stuff that it does. So it's going to smash in there and drop Reid down to 11. Let's see what Shota does. His most powerful play right now is Saheeli's Artistry, but he does have other options to use up his mana. He's going to use Unlicensed Disintegration during his main phase right now to take out the Marionette Master. I think that Shota realizes that some shenanigans with that card are one of the ways that he can go from 9 to dead here, even through a big attack from Reid Duke. So he's just going to take care of that problem immediately. It's also going to drop Reid down to 8, thanks to that servo. Back to Reid Duke. And he's got his hand in head here as he's trying to figure out, okay, what needs to happen. Take a look at what Reid's got in his hand. We knew the Saheeli's Artistry. He's also got a Malfunction.
So one of the problems here for Reid is on Shota's next turn, the Ether Squall Ancient will give Shota 3 more energy, giving him the ability to activate the Ether Squall Ancient's ability and send all creatures back to their owner's hand.
Okay, so we're going to see Saheeli's Artistry now from Reid Duke. He's going to copy the Ether Squall Ancient. He's also going to copy the Weldfast Monitor. And that's going to give him the requisite number of artifacts here and the mana to use his underhanded designs to just kill the Ether Squall Ancient on the other side of the battlefield. So Shota will no longer have the ability to return everything to hand. And in fact, doesn't even have any attacks anymore. That was big.
That was a huge turn for sure. And that Saheeli sort of emblem-looking token there on the battlefield, that is we're representing the copy of the Ether Squall Ancient.
Yeah, and the other one that's sitting on the Weldfast Monitor is the copy of the Weldfast Monitor itself.
And now keep in mind Saheeli's Artistry, when you copy a creature with it, the token that's a copy of the creature is also an artifact. So that token copy of Ether Squall Ancient is an artifact version of that. And that's going to be potentially really important because Shota has a copy of Saheeli's Artistry himself. And so he could actually target both modes on the Ether Squall Ancient token.
Is that what he's going to do? Yes, I want 2 Ether Squall Ancients. Wow. All right, so those are 2 more copies of copies. And unfortunately for Reid, I think he's on 0 energy at the moment. He will get 3 if he remembers.
Yeah, unclear whether he remembered that trigger or not.
Yeah, I don't see that. You know, we've got that symbol you can see at the top of your screen, the little card, and we put the energy counters on those, but there is a chance that Reid Duke's energy counter is just maybe slightly off camera, or he forgot. It could be one or the other. All right, yeah, we see on that other angle there that I did not see the energy counter on there, so I think he just didn't get it.
Maybe the case. So taking a look at Reid's hand here, he has a copy of Malfunction as well as a second underhanded designs. Now he could use, you know, these 2 removal spells to sort of take out and lock down Shota's 2 Ether Squall Ancients. The problem is that'll still allow Shota to get up to 8 energy on the next turn and activate the malfunctioned Ether Squall Ancient. So it's not a complete solution to the problem here.
Looks like Reid's lining up. Malfunction here. Now he's going to play the other underhanded designs. And then he's going to kill that Ether Skull Ancient. But like you said, Shota's still going to get 3 energy. Ooh, looks like Reid may be lining up a big attack. Life totals have dwindled, even though both players are playing relatively controlling decks. It's only 9 to 8 here, and Reid could put in a pretty serious attack. Bang! So it's a Weldfast monitor at the top there. Excuse me, in the middle of the screen. That's what the other Saheeli's Artistry copy targeted. And this is a big attack for Reid. I think Reid also recognizing that, you know, Shota can activate the Ether Skull Ancient next turn and return all other creatures. So all of these tokens are basically useless anyway. And if he can trade them in for any value or any creature or anything before that happens, then, you know, he can try to get some value out of it. Because if you looked at Reid's board, many of his creatures were tokens of one sort or another, either from Saheeli's Artistry or just being servos. You see that Shota did, in fact, remember his 3 energy, so that puts him to 8. I think he's just double-checking the Ether Skull Ancient. Remember, that's a card that Reid has in his deck, but not Shota. Shota's managed to put out 3 of them on his own without actually playing the card, but that's just Shota for you.
And one of the key things about Ether Skull Ancient that can be easy to overlook is that its activated ability can only be activated when you could cast a sorcery.
That is very easy to overlook. And what we see here is Shota basically signaling that he will be activating that Ether Skull Ancient here as he's going to attack first, get a little value out of it, and return everything to hand. And this is very beneficial for Shota. While he doesn't actually get to do much with the Ancient itself because it's locked down under a malfunction, he did effectively kill a Weldfast monitor, everything that Reid had copied in all of the remaining servos. Gosh, this is so close to Reid's at 5, Shota's at 3. And it looks like Shota's just going to go ahead and draw some cards here. And of note here, if that copy that copy is an artifact as well, so he won't have to discard. You mentioned that earlier too, Ian.
That's right. It's also going to remain on the battlefield tapped to just keep generating energy for Shota each turn.
Here's an Eager Construct for Reid. And he put his card on the bottom. Shota put his on top. And there's a Narnum Cobra as Reid attempts to rebuild this board. Here's the Weaponcraft Enthusiast, but this time he is going to go for the servos.
And Shota, able to untap here, picks up 3 energy off the Ether Skull Ancient and just has a hand full of cards here.
And there's enough energy needed to activate that Ether Skull Ancient again if he wants. That is a Woodworker's Puzzle Knot. Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot there to give him a little bit of a life total boost here as well, which could certainly be relevant. Though it looks like Shota may be able to just sort of repeat this process, at least for a turn or two, and just force Reid to continually rebuild his board. Interesting. Shota's doing some counting here. You know, one of the highlights of his deck is 2 copies of Aetherworks Marvel, which we haven't really seen from him yet.
Looks like an Aetherborn Marauder added to the battlefield there for Shota.
Who, by the way, did not activate the Ether Skull Ancient there.
Yeah, there's no real reason to on this board. Reid doesn't really have any threats that can get through. Shota has a couple turtles back to block.
Yeah, the Marauder has lifelink as well. Bricata Club Security and a Consulate Skygate. Not really what Reid wants to see here. Another land off the top from Shota, but he's up to 13 energy at this point. And we haven't even seen some of his most powerful spells, which I know is hard to say because we've already seen Saheeli's Artistry and Confiscation Coup, but he has 2 Aetherwork Marvels, which he's going to play one of maybe this turn. He's got one in his hand. And also Noxious Gearhulk in the deck. Okay, now we're going to see the Aether Squall. Excuse me, the Aetherworks Marvel.
And this is quite an engine Shota has going here, with Aetherworks Marvel being fueled by the tapped Aether Squall Ancient, producing energy every turn. Shota's just going to be able to, select through his deck very quickly and get, basically all of his non-land cards within a couple turns here.
That's
and here
right.
comes Noxious Gearhulk, I believe.
And that's actually going to kill the Consulate Skygate, which means that the 2/2 Aetherborn Marauder with lifelink is going to be able to now start attacking. And if you look at Reid's life total, that's very relevant. It's a 2-turn clock.
Good game.
Yeah, and Reid just draws his card and says, yeah, good game. You got it. Shota Yasooka with the more powerful late game. Able to take the first game there. We'll be back right after these messages.
Check out Kaladesh Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Build a deck at your own pace and play at your convenience. Draft anytime, play anytime. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Hawaii. Pro Tour Kaladesh, Marshall Sutcliffe with Ian Duke in the booth. Got a couple of updates for you here. We've got Richie Hohen winning his match 2-0 over Matt Costa. They're already out of the feature match area. You can see that empty table. Kentaro Yamamoto finds himself up a game against Micron. And the match we're going to check in on right now is Matt Nass versus Matteo More. And More is up a game in this one, from what I heard. Although it looks like our graphic says Matt Nass is, so we'll double check that one. It looks like a Bomat Courier here for Matt Nass, getting in the red zone right on time, turn 1.
That's right. Great way to start the game.
Card can generate some weird but actually quite powerful advantage in the right deck, and I can tell you that Matt definitely has one of those decks. He's got the kind of deck that just wants to curve out, dump its hand on the table, and you can pay a red mana and sacrifice that Courier, and all the cards that you exiled with it, which happens when you attack, by the way, you have to discard your hand, but you get all those cards, and sometimes your hand is 0 or 1 cards, or maybe a land you don't need.
Yeah, really what you want to do with Bomat Courier is just play it on turn 1, get in for 2, 3, maybe 4 damage if you're lucky, probably 3, and then later on in the game when your hand is empty, you just cash it in for 3 cards. You basically got, a lightning bolt plus an ancestral recall, if you want to think of it that way.
Oh, I want to think of it that way. Yeah, and the Courier also just providing a relevant slot here in the 1-drop slot, which often can be difficult and limited to find something really good to do for 1 mana. And it's an artifact, too. So, it pumps up different artifact synergies and that kind of thing. Looks like both players with the Key to the City on the table here. Neither of them with a particularly great target, though. What we see from Nass here is that he's going to use his Key to the City just as a loot, basically. He's going to discard a card, pay 2 mana, draw a card here. He didn't want that Sky Skiff. Maybe he wanted to hit a land or something like that.
Yeah, Key to the City, a fantastic card. Definitely something I'd consider a bomb or close to a bomb. Can be great for getting through some extra damage, but even if you're not, it's basically, what we call a tome, right? You can pay 2 mana, essentially, to loot. There's an old school card, Jalem Tome, I think, which had similar kind of function and numbers to that.
Oh, you have it that high, though, huh? You think it's like top tier?
I think it's quite good. I wouldn't call it like an outright bomb, but, it's a card that's in consideration for a first pick and is pretty much always making my deck.
Yeah. I have seen people do very good things. And, interestingly here, we see Matt Nass using it in what is ultimately a pretty aggressive deck, but he's just generating value from it, not even using it for unblockable that last turn. He will probably this time, but no, he doesn't actually need to. Chandra's Pyrohelix. It's going to take down the Aetherborn Marauder. And look at this Bomat Courier. It has accrued 5 cards under it here, Ian. And as Matt sort of works this thing like a fiddle, you can see that he's made very, very conscious choice to leave up that mountain just in case something were to happen to his Courier.
Yeah, at this point, you just never want to put shields down on that because that Courier is worth 5 cards. You know, the playtest name for the Bomat Courier was the Mail Bug, because it goes and it collects mail, then it brings it back to you.
I love that. That's great. And by the way, the mail has arrived here for Matt Nass. He is going to discard his last card and then, boom, scoop up 5 more. Wow, what a huge advantage for him. And he had used the key, I believe, so he was deciding if he wanted to pay the 2 mana, but he decided not to, as it looks like he's got plenty to do with his 5 mana here and would rather just add to the board. Moray's doing some counting on his side. He's got a Windrake and an Aether Theorist going. All right, here's a Thriving Rhino for Matt Nass. He's also got a Quicksmith Genius, which is not optimized in his deck, but still pretty good. You can see he's got a couple of artifacts there already, and it looks like the Sky Skiff's going to chip in for a couple of damage. And next turn could be really, really explosive for Matt, depending on what he ends up doing, because he's got 3 more cards in his hand after having just effectively drawn 4 last turn. And that Key to the City really gets annoying if you're trying to be the defensive player in the late game. You know, it's one of the cards you really don't want to see if your life total gets a little bit low. And this is going to be really tough for Matteo More because, you know, he's playing Windrakes and a Longfin Skywhale, which are very good attackers in the air, but he's behind. And these are the type of cards that really encourage you to race because, you know, the Longfin Skywhale cannot block non-flyers. And the Windrake isn't a great blocker itself either. It's a much better attacker. So it's going to be tough for Matteo because, you know, if life totals were reversed, I would love his position here, but he is really kind of forced to try to race Matt Nass, and Matt just seems to be in a better position to do that. And you see the Windrake stay home this time.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said, Marshall. You know, if Matteo's going to get out of this jam, he definitely needs some ways to gain life. You know, something like a Tidy Conclusion or, you know, underhand designs, maybe Essence Extraction. There are possibilities here in a, you know, a blue-black controlling deck with artifacts, but it's not looking like he has what he needs right now.
Yeah, and Matt can kind of just patiently set up his side of the board, and then whatever's left standing just gets targeted with Key to the City and just chips in for 3 to 4 damage a turn, and you'll see Matteo's life total plummet as a result of that. Now, of a note here is that Matteo is up a game, so he does have a game to give. If this one doesn't work out for him, he'll have another shot at it turn 3, and he'll be on the play, which is certainly important when you're taking the strategy that he has here. Okay, looks like another Chandra's Pyrohelix is going to snap off this Windrake while the shields are down for Matteo. Wow, look at this from Matt Nass. A huge attack from him. He's going to play a Wayward Giant. He's going to activate his Sky Skiff. He's going to use his key. He's going to use the energy on the Thriving Rhino and just bash here. Actually prompting a chump block from the Aether Theorist at this point. And this is desperation time for Matteo More, as he is going to have a very difficult time coming back after that turn. I mean, that Longfin Skywhale is just a blank here. It's just doing nothing. Matteo effectively has no board. He has a creature that can't block, and then he's got the key, which is something that could maybe help him find something, but, you know, its primary role is to get in for damage, and that's just not the situation that he's found himself in here. And Matteo is all the way down to 8. Okay, and he's going to have to discard an Unlicensed Disintegration, Matteo, which is a bit of a bummer because that is exactly the type of card that he wants to cast, but with no red mana in sight, he just needs to get rid of it. So he's going to pay 2 for the key. When it untaps, that's going to draw him a card. He gets to draw his card for his regular draw step, and hey, might as well attack. Okay, well, this helps. This helps. This is a Rush of Vitality, which is actually going to be a 10-point life swing here as Matteo's going to jump up to 13 and Matt's going to fall down to 15. But that could have bought him at least another turn. I don't think it's going to be enough to get Matteo out of it if that's all he has. But, well, it is a turn. And once again, both players turning the key wildly here as now it's Matt Nass who's going to pay for his key untapping. But in the meantime, look at this attack back from Matt. It's 10 damage to put Mateo immediately back down to 3. And Mateo is going to need something fairly miraculous to get out of it here. Let's see if he has anything. No, he doesn't. All right, so that's going to be going to game 3 here on that table, which means we can jump back to Shota Yasooka versus Reid Duke as they are ready to go for their second game. And I cannot wait to see how this one goes. Reid's on the play. Was actually curious about that. I don't know if there's an argument to be made for being on the draw in the matchup, but it's probably closer than normal.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. When in doubt, though, I'm always in the camp of just play.
I am
not sure.
I don't get cute with it. I do too. So a pair of Metal Spinners puzzle knots for both players here to kick things off. But Reid has a nice follow-up with the Weld-Fast Monitor. He has a difficult time activating its activated ability for red, but it's an artifact and it's a creature that can attack. And he's kind of using it to fill out his curve and to enable some of his other powerful cards like Underhanded Designs and that kind of thing.
That's right. We saw in Game 1, Reid's deck is very, very centered around artifact synergy, double Underhanded Designs, as you mentioned, as well as the Marionette Master.
Yeah, you get less and less picky about which artifacts you have, the more of those type of cards that you get. And the ones that have power and toughness are like, yeah, get in there. And you see that from Reid. He's playing an Arnhem Cobra as well in this deck. We saw the Consulate Skygate. Those type of cards that are not super high impact and maybe look a little out of place, but the fact that they're artifacts and can attack and block is all he really needs to know. So this is a live fast here for Shota. Is he discarding? Is he up to 8 cards? I think he is. It's just at a snapshot. Yeah, it looks like it. He drew 2 cards there, but he ended up having to. Well, he went a little too deep. He had to discard the Tezzeret's Ambition here. Now, this is interesting. So here's a Harsh Scrutiny now from Reid Duke, probably out of the sideboard. And it looks like he's actually going to nab the Noxious Gearhulk here, Ian. This is a huge hit for Reid, especially given that you can see that Shota has all of his most powerful cards in his hand here. He's got, look at the smile from Reid. He's like, really, man?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand,
Artistry.
Reid's super happy to get the Gearhulk with Harsh Scrutiny. That's like best possible case for that. He's probably not as happy to see, cards like Gear Seeker Serpent, Aetherworks Marvel, and Saheeli's Artistry also in Shota's hand. That's a lot of bombs for Reid to plow through this game. But that said, the information about knowing, especially the Saheeli's Artistry, is really, really valuable. And I think that's part of the reason that Reid brought Harsh Scrutiny in.
Now, this is an interesting situation here for Reid because he has managed to assemble 5 power through his artifact creatures, and that's actually going to make Shota just play the Aetherborn Marauder. He has, as we saw when Reid got to see it, he's got an Aetherworks Marvel in his hand, but taking a turn off here would be a pretty significant amount of damage, and the fact that he's only at 2 energy means that he's unlikely to be able to activate it next turn anyway, so he'd rather just put up something defensive maybe to block the monitor.
That's right, and I really like Reid taking an aggressive stance here. Now, one of the really important things about this game state we haven't mentioned yet, I think, is that Shota does not have blue mana. He has no islands whatsoever,
Great point.
And 2 of the really powerful cards in his hand are double blue. Now, speaking of which, he just top-decked an island this turn, so that's going to help him get a little bit closer. And he adds Aetherworks Marvel and Thriving Turtle.
That island
up in energy.
Big time.
It was.
That was a huge draw for Shota because that got him 2/3 of the way there as far as energy goes. And it looks like Reid has brought in a Ballista Charger from his sideboard here as well, realizing that he needs to punch through and also probably is not advantaged going into the late game, right? I think the players will often think of things in terms of like, well, what happens if this game goes long, which, by the way, is what Reid's deck is trying to do. Well, from what he saw in Game 1, it probably doesn't end that well for him, so he switched gears a bit and brought in this Ballista Charger. He's also been able to get in with this Pillar Bug last turn. Now, in this case, though, Shota has attacked with his Aetherborn Marauder to gain a couple of life.
Was switched gears intentional, by the way? That's one of my favorite parts about this format. So many opportunities for unintentional puns. Or intentional ones.
No comment.
So Reid, again, has an opportunity for a big attack here. I mean, he could, I'm not saying he will, he could malfunction the Thriving Turtle and just get in for a bunch of damage with that Ballista Charger. I mean, his other option here is playing out Marionette Master. Of course, he has to be a little concerned about Shota's Saheeli's Artistry, you know, whenever he's thinking about playing a big threat. But he does know that Shota doesn't have a second island in hand, doesn't have access to 2 blue, so he could take a risk in some sense there.
Yeah, open up the door for a turn. I mean, it depends on what he can do with that turn. Let's say that Shota were to miss on an island, you know, then what can Reid do with it? If it's just going to sit there for a while, then Shota will eventually find it.
And it looks like he's going for the malfunction play, which I really like here. Now, it feels super bad to play a 4-mana removal spell on a 1-mana creature, but the reason Reid's going for it here is he just gets in a ton of damage right now, guaranteed, putting Shota pretty low on life, and then Marionette Master is a card that really excels when your opponent is low on life. It just really constricts their options. All of Reid's attackers right now are artifact creatures, so when Marionette Master comes down, it means Shota can't really effectively block and kill those artifacts.
That was a 9 damage hit there. He effectively got him for 7 with the Charger and 2 with the Prakata Pillar Bug. That was not an island off the top for Shota. He actually found a swamp rather than an island, which is what he would have much preferred to see. I got to say, I really like that play from Reid Duke as well. Like you said, it doesn't feel good, you know, to use a clunky removal spell on their 1-drop. But geez, that was a lot of damage he got in with. And Shota Yasooka also playing some off-color artifact creatures here as well with a Bastion Mastodon that Neri has the ability to activate. But again, it's similar reasoning to why Reid's playing cards that he's playing, is that artifacts and creatures are just super, super important to both of these strategies. So Shota's like, sure.
Now, the other reason that spending the removal spell on the turtle works out really well in this game state is when Reid plays Marionette Master, assuming he puts the counters on the Marionette Master, that means every artifact creature that dies of his will deal damage to Shota. So Reid actually prefers Shota to have blockers that have high power
to
blockers that have low power, because he wants his blocked creatures to die.
Like, this is a horrific spot for Shota, right? Like, he gets to gain 2 life with a block with the Marauder, which puts him to 6. But if he takes anything else and anything dies for Reid, then it's an additional 4 damage that he's going to take. It looks like he's kind of dead.
Yeah, I mean, so thinking through things here, he can block the Ballista Charger with the Aetherborn Marauder and gain 2. That puts him at 6. And then he can let the Pillar Bug through and block the Weldfast Monitor.
He could also
go to 1.
He could take both.
Yeah, he could take both. He could also, he might as well block the Weldfast Monitor, because he's taking 3 either way, I think. But that
but if he blocks it and it dies, then he is taking an additional 4.
Oh, that's right. It's 4 from the Marionette Master. I was thinking
it
was 3 because of the 3 counters on it. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay. -1, 3.
So he's going to drop to 3 here, I believe. Yes, he's down to 3, and this is a huge draw set for Shota. If he misses here, it could get ugly. But one of the other things to note here, by the way, is 2 permanents went to the graveyard from the battlefield, which means that he generated 2 energy and now has an Aetherworks Marvel online. He's going to wait till his turn to use it, it looks like. All right, he found another Thriving Turtle, but not an island. He really... Remember that Saheeli's Artistry is still just hanging out in his hand alongside that Gear Seeker Serpent, and he just cannot deploy these bombs out of his hand, but he may be able to find one with the Aetherworks Marvel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of combinations of cards that could get Shota out of this. I mean, he really needs to answer that Marionette Master soon, so finding his Unlicensed Disintegration, for example, is helpful.
Confiscation Coup.
Yep, that's also would be a great one.
Though that would be a little bit tricky, because he would have to use up all of his energy here, and then he'd get 4 back from the coup, which isn't enough to steal the Master. Now, if you add it 2 extra from a Thriving Turtle, it is. It's a close one. Okay, Shota's just going to pass the turn back. Let's see what happens here. Reid immediately attacks with everything. Okay, so the Marvel's going to get activated before combat from Shota. And boom, Reid Duke has the win on the table with that Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot just sort of innocuously sitting over there. All he had to do was force Shota to use his Aetherworks Marvel, then he can respond to it and not even let Shota start flipping over cards. So that is game 2 going to Reid Duke and forcing a game 3. We've only got one other match going in the feature match area because Kentaro Yamamoto defeated Micron to improve to 8-2 in our side match, which is already finished up. Again, Rich Hohen defeated Matt Costa. That leaves Matteo More and Matt Nass in their game 3 as we jump back over. And let's see how this one's turned out for Matteo with his Flyers deck. Well, it looks like he is under heavy assault here once again. Subtle Strike there is going to make a trade, it looks like, for an Elegant Edgecrafters. But the beats are flowing pretty nicely here from Matt Nass, who already has Matteo down to 10. And Matteo's board is not super impressive with just a couple of servos, an 0-1 Weaponcraft Enthusiast, and the Ether Theorist. He really needs to find something powerful to get him back on board. He's also of note here, Matt has 3 more lands in play than Matteo at this point. Okay, well, an Eager Construct is going to let him get back the Oval Chase Daredevil. They're both going to scry. You see Matt Nass waiting to see what Matteo does. It often doesn't affect much, but it is correct. The active player is the one who has to complete that action first. It looks like More may have actually forgotten the trigger there on his Oval Chase Daredevil, as it's still sitting in his graveyard, even though he just played that Eager Construct. May not be relevant here if Matt can find another couple of threats. He did chip in there for a total of 3 damage with the Sky Skiff, thanks to the rest of his board. He's got the Thriving Rhino here as well. And it looks like Shrewd Negotiation is going to be the card here for Matteo. Okay, so the Shrewd Negotiation does happen here, but things are still looking very good for Matt Nass. We're going to let this one come to a conclusion because our main table is ready to go. So we'll go back there, and I'm going to give you an update once I hear it between Matt Nass and Matteo More, and I'll let you know who won that one. I will say Matt looked like to be in a good position there, though you never know. So we'll let you know once that happens. But we want to make sure that these gentlemen get underway because this is potentially a pretty grindy matchup, even though Reid is trying to fight that as hard as he can by, you know, going fast. So an Underhanded Designs kicks things off for Reid Duke, and he follows up with a Bracata Pillar Bug. Pretty nice little start here from Reid. And a nice start from Shota Yasooka as well. He's going to attack with the Broker there. That's going to drop Reid down to 17. Though the Aetherborn Marauder really not able to pick up +1/+1 counters for Shota very often. He's just got a pair of Thriving Turtles, and that's about it. Okay, I can tell you that Matt Nass was, in fact, able to finish off that game, and he improves now to 9-1 on the day. Matteo More is going to be 8-2. Coming out of the second round of draft here and looking to finish strong there. This is a big match for these two gentlemen as well. Both of them, you know, are trying to fight that urge to have their eye on that top 8 already, right? It's real early in the day here, but with such a good start coming in from overnight for both players and on the verge here of maybe locking up a 10-0 if you're Shota or a 9-1 if you're Reid. You know, those thoughts can't help but creep in your head a little bit.
So this turn, Reid adds Metal Spinners, Puzzle Knot, uses the Underhanded Designs to ping in for 1, attacks with the Bracata Pillar Bug. And looking at the way this game might shape up here, we see Shota Yasooka with a very powerful hand, Bastion Mastodon, Gearseeker Serpent as heavy-hitting creatures, as well as Saheeli's Artistry. But one thing to keep in mind is Reid is sitting on a Mind Rot in his own hand. So if he can navigate to where Shota has, you know, exactly 2 powerful cards in his hand, that Mind Rot could pick up a ton of value and really change the course of this game. As it stands right now, Shota, I think, with 3 cards in hand. So the Mind Rot would be good this turn, but would still leave Shota with potentially Saheeli's Artistry copying Bastion Mastodon.
Things are getting a little sketchy from Reid, too, because uncharacteristically, Shota has just sort of curved out with creatures here.
Yeah.
You know, he just went Broker, Marauder, Bastion Mastodon, which is, you know, it's a rough curve. but still, he's put a lot of power toughness on the battlefield fairly quickly here.
That's right. It seems like Reid's approach to this matchup has been taking a more aggressive position and trying to take advantage of the fact that, you know, while Shota's deck is very powerful in the late game, you know, he doesn't always have the nicest curves.
Interesting there. So Reid Duke played a Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot. He actually had a trigger from his underhanded designs. He decided not to pay. That's left him the ability to activate the Pillar Bug and, if he wants, even activate that underhanded designs to just kill a creature. Reid may be looking at this board and saying, I'm falling behind kind of quickly here, and I may just need to use this underhanded designs as a removal spell.
Yeah, one really interesting thing is that the underhanded designs does have the potential to stop Saheeli's Artistry, but Reid might have to fire it off this turn.
And this is the decision point. He wants to kill the Bastion Mastodon to maintain his life total. And at the end of this, Shota's going to have a 3/3 Aetherborn Marauder, which is a 3/3 flying lifelink. That is no joke. Reid is going to have to find an answer to that relatively quickly. Let's see if he has anything in his hand that can deal with it. Not currently, but he's at 13 life. He's got some time to work with. He's also got a Saheeli's Artistry, a Tezzeret's Ambition. He can go for the Mind Rot here, though, as you mentioned right now, in hand for Shota Yasooka. 3 cards, so not the perfect Mind Rot, but they're pretty good. He's got a Saheeli's Artistry, a Gearseeker Serpent, and a High Tide Hermit, so he would get, you know, probably the Hermit, and then whichever one Shota couldn't play the next turn. You know, if I'm sitting in Reid's seat, I'm looking at my hand and I'm thinking, okay, I have all the tools I need to win this game. It just needs to go along. Like, I should be able to beat most things from Shota, even given Shota's absurdly high, powerful deck, because he's got the Mind Rod, because he's got Diabolic Tutor that he can go find whatever he wants, because he's got a bomb like Saheeli's Artistry just sitting in his hand. Interesting. So Reid's actually going to take a turn off here. Well, maybe not the whole turn, but part of a turn off at least here, to play Diabolic Tutor. This is the one play that he had that kind of didn't do much, right? You know, even the Mind Rot could slow down Shota for his next turn, even if it didn't affect the board directly. And Reid looks like he's not exactly sure what he wants to grab. He's kind of gone through a couple of times and said, okay, well, let me double check there's not something better for this scenario. And he picked something. We'll find out what it is shortly here.
Now, I think if Reid is going to get out of this game, it's going to involve having a really nice Saheeli's Artistry of his own.
Okay.
But at present, there are not any really good artifacts in the battlefield for him to copy, so he may just hold on and wait until either Shota plays one or he's able to get one on the battlefield himself.
What he ended up getting was a Marionette Master. And there's the High Tide Hermit for Yasooka. Yeah, this is a big turn for Reid Duke. You got to figure he's got to fire off the Saheeli's Artistry here to just stabilize this board. Though this does a pretty good job of it, unfortunately for Reid not making any flyers, so he is going to take half of his life total in the air, is going to get tossed away here. And this is going to be very, very close. Okay, there's a critical land number 6 from Shota Yasooka. Wow, this is going to be so close because Shota gets to fire off something big here, right? He can play a Saheeli's Artistry, and given that he's got a servo, he could play the Gearseeker Serpent instead, whichever one he decides is better. Reid has the ability to knock out both of the other 2 cards in his hand. Oh, he drew a Noxious Gearhulk. Okay, well, that might change things dramatically here as well. Reid has all the tools to win this game, but Shota may just be a little too far ahead for Reid to come back here. Let's see how this turn goes. So he has to pay 2 energy so that that High Tide Hermit has the ability to attack, and he does. And Reid's just going to chump block.
326.
Shota's going to gain 3 life, but then lose 1 back from the Marionette Master. And what are we going to see here? He's going to actually play the Gear Seeker Serpent here, which, you know, he's trying to set up a turn next turn where he can just activate it and kill Reid.
Yeah, it's also really important that Shota didn't play the Noxious Gear Hulk there, and I'm sure he's thinking about this, because if he did, Reid could Saheeli's Artistry and double copy the Noxious Gear Hulk.
That's totally right.
So, you know, one of the only ways I think Shota could lose from this position would have been to play out the Gear Hulk there, but knowing that he saw Saheeli's Artistry from Reid in game 1, I think he's wiser than that.
Yeah, and on top of it, you know, the Gear Seeker Serpent just presents a lethal, unblockable threat here and forces Reid to either gain life or deal with it immediately. And this is desperation time for Reid. He was trying to set this game up, and he just couldn't quite find any breathing room, so he's going to have to play Tezzeret's Ambition and hope to find something that can take care of the Serpent. And he has underhanded designs here, but is he a mana short? It looks like it. All he can do is represent a bounce spell there. He doesn't have it. Shota Yasooka moves in, and he's 10-0 to start things off at the Pro Tour. And that was a really cool match to watch. But yeah, Shota ultimately coming out victorious there. And he is perfect so far. He also has not lost a single draft match, as you might imagine here. He's 5-0 in the draft to kick things off here at Pro Tour Kaladesh. So moving things very nicely for Shota Yasooka, and also very good for Reid Duke. Let's send it to the news desk and Rich Hagan.
Thanks very much, Marshall, and thanks for Ian. One more round of draft to come, but before that, we're going to get Reid Duke in here, all being well, and he'll walk you through what is an amazingly interesting draft, one of the most complicated draft decks I've seen in a long time, in terms of there are 5 colors spread across there somewhere in terms of activations. You've got Narman Cobras, you've got Well-Fast Monitors, and those are the 2 colors that he's not playing at all, essentially. He has a Prophetic Prism and an Ether Hub. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Reid ended up with that deck, what he thinks of it, whether at 1-1 he's thinking, I did well to win 1, or whether he's thinking, well, maybe I really need to win this next round. So we'll see how things go with Reid Duke. He'll be along with us in just a minute or 2. Now, some of the names that you perhaps aren't as familiar with, who are sort of in the thick of things, are 8-2, for example. Jun Ishihara, playing in his 7th Pro Tour from Japan, is 8-2. Corey Baumeister in his 10th PT at RPTQ to return for him. He's 8-2. Oliver Polat-Rotman, Platinum Pro, 8-2. Matteo More is down to 8-2. Makis Matsoukas from Greece is up to 9-1. Fantastic performance for him in his first Pro Tour. That's courtesy of a Magic Online RPTQ. There are so many different ways to get here, and Magic Online RPTQ is one of them. And I think we have an MTGO RPTQer out on the field with BDM.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Rob Pisano. Rob's a name that we've been seeing more and more in the standings here at the Pro Tour. You had a really best finish of your career last year at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad, right?
It was actually my first finish. It's first Pro Tour Shadows. Played kind of a janky deck. Went pretty well though. Went 11-5 and got myself here. So.
Now, I know you from the New York area. You've been playing Magic for a long time.
Maybe a long time ago, but yeah, I played Magic like 18 years ago maybe, and I quit about 13 years ago and just got back 2 years ago. So kind of took a little bit of a break. And yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah.
What drew you back into playing the game, and what drew you to playing competitively?
I don't want to say the H word, but yeah, other card games kind of that I picked up and played. I was like, yeah, you know, Magic's just better, so I'm just going to start playing Magic again, and yeah, it's been good. And
so you get to the Pro Tour, you do top 25 playing that Jeskai. It was basically like a Jeskai Nahiri deck, right?
Yeah. So it was a Madness deck. You know, the idea was play Jason Nahiri and discard cards like Fiery Temper for value, and the end game of like Chandra or Dragon Master Outcast just kind of won the game.
So now, yeah, I love that deck. I played it. I didn't do very well with it. He's much better than I am. Now, you didn't go to Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, but you're starting off this Pro Tour season with that invite in tow.
So, yeah, I deferred because I needed to go 12-4 at Sydney to go from silver to gold, so I figured I'd just defer, start fresh, and have 2 Pro Tours for this one, or 2 invites this season, and then I top 8 at Indy, so I would have been invited anyway, so I don't know. Kind of screwed the pooch on that one, but yeah, no, I'm feeling good. You know, I'm 8-2 so far today. Draft deck wasn't great, but I feel good about standard. So
tell us a little bit about standard. Where did you end up? I know you're on the same team with Zach Elsick and Travis Wu preparing for this event. Are you on that same crazy control deck?
Yeah, so Travis built some Jeskai deck that's really sweet, and a few of my teammates, Zach Elsick, Gary Wong, Andrew Solano, they picked it up, and they're doing well with it. I probably would have switched to it if you know, I had a little more heads up, but you know, I've been playing the Marvel deck since Attune with the Ether got spoiled, basically, because that's the card that really makes it work. And the deck's great, feels great, and as long as you don't get the Marvel countered, it's really powerful. So, yeah.
All right. Rob Pisano, he's going to be trying to turn silver into gold this year. As
platinum.
Or platinum, he says. Sending it back to you at the desk. Rich Hagon.
Okay, let's get him. All right, thank you very much to BDM and Rob Pisano out there in the hall. Now, some more people in the thick of things. Li Shi-chan is up to 9-1. We haven't seen a lot of him. He's been around the feature match area, but he's just quietly going about his business. Only a single loss with 1 round of draft to go. Pat Cox is down to 8-2. Zach Elsick at 8-2, teammate of Rob Pisano there. And also, time to mention the Citrus Assassin himself, Mr. Greg Orange. He is at 8-2, alongside Reid Duke. What about Elias Watsfeld from Sweden? Haven't seen him at the Pro Tour in a while. I think that was an RPTQ win to bring him back to the Tour. He is making the most of his opportunity. He is at 8-2, alongside Pierre Dajon. Matt Nass, we know, up to 9-1. And watch out for Paula Vita Dama de Rosa of Brazil. He is still absolutely doing the business. 8-2, right in the thick of things, as is Kelvin Chu, who was top 8 of Pro Tour Return to Ravnica in 2012. Kentaro Yamamoto, another Japanese player, at 8-2 with his 3 Pro Tour top 8s. Last time around, that was Magic Origins. But as promised, we have Reid Duke. He's very graciously agreed to join us here across the studio. So a real powerhouse few minutes of the Brains Trust coming up. It's time for the Draft Viewer with Reid Duke.